The unexpected encounter. Arriving at paradise. Nora Bennett pressed her forehead against the cool window of the shuttle bus, watching palm trees blur past in streaks of green and gold. Ocean Breeze Resort rose before her like something from a magazine spread she would never be able to afford. White buildings cascaded down toward pristine beaches, fountains sparkled in manicured gardens, and everywhere she looked, people moved with the easy confidence of those who belonged in such places. Her best friend Rachel had surprised her with this trip for her birthday, pooling savings with their tight-knit group of friends. 1 week of escape from her cramped studio apartment, from managing the bookstore during the day and waitressing at night, from the exhausting reality of her life. Nora had cried when Rachel handed her the reservation confirmation, promising to make every moment count. The lobby smelled of exotic flowers and expensive perfume. Nora clutched her second-hand suitcase tighter, acutely aware of how her simple cotton dress and worn sandals contrasted with the designer luggage and couture outfits surrounding her. The marble floor reflected chandeliers that probably cost more than her annual rent. Check-in was surprisingly smooth. The receptionist, all professional warmth and practiced efficiency, handed Nora a key card to the coral suite. As she followed a bellhop through winding paths lined with hibiscus and jasmine, Nora felt her shoulders begin to relax. Maybe she could do this. Maybe for 1 week, she could pretend the weight of the world was not constantly pressing down on her. Ghosts from the past. The suite exceeded every expectation. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked the turquoise ocean, white curtains billowed in the sea breeze, and the bed looked like a cloud wrapped in Egyptian cotton. Nora explored every corner with childlike wonder, running her fingers along the smooth countertops, testing the rainfall shower, discovering complimentary chocolates on the pillow. After changing into her best swimsuit cover-up, she decided to explore. The resort map showed 3 pools, multiple restaurants, a spa that probably charged more per hour than she earned in a day, and various activity centers. She would start at the main pool, maybe order a fruit smoothie and read her book in the sunshine. The pool area resembled a movie set. Beautiful people lounged on white cushioned chairs, servers glided between tables with colorful drinks, and laughter floated through the air like music. Nora found an empty chair near the edge, away from the clusters of glamorous guests, and opened her paperback novel. She managed 3 pages before her entire world tilted sideways. "Nora? Is that actually you?" The voice struck her like ice water. Slowly, as if moving through honey, she lifted her gaze from her book. Tyler Morrison stood 5 feet away, looking every bit the success story he had always intended to become. His navy blazer was perfectly tailored, his brown hair styled with expensive product, and his smile held that familiar edge of superiority that had slowly eroded her confidence during their 2 years together. "Tyler." Her voice emerged steadier than she felt. "I did not expect to see you here. Corporate retreat for top performers." He gestured vaguely toward a group wearing matching polo shirts with an automotive company logo. "Ocean Breeze partners with businesses for exclusive packages." "But what are you doing here? This place is pretty upscale for someone still working retail." The subtle dig landed exactly where he intended. Before Nora could formulate a response, a tall woman with glossy black hair and flawless makeup appeared at Tyler's elbow. She wore a designer bikini and carried herself like someone who had never questioned her right to occupy space. "Tyler, darling, you disappeared." Her voice had the cultured smoothness of private schools and country clubs. "Stephanie, this is Nora. An old friend." Tyler's dismissive tone reduced 2 years of dating to nothing. "Nora, this is Stephanie Walsh. My fiancée." The desperate lie. The word fiancé hit Nora like a physical blow. 6 months. It had been 6 months since Tyler ended their relationship, claiming he needed to focus on his career, that serious commitments were not feasible at this stage of his life, that she needed to understand his priorities. Yet here he stood, engaged to someone who clearly fit the image he wanted to project. "Congratulations," Nora managed, her throat tight. "That's wonderful. Thank you. Stephanie extended her left hand, displaying a diamond ring that caught the sunlight and threw rainbow prisms across the pool deck. Tyler proposed in the Maldives last month. It was incredibly romantic. We are very happy. Tyler's smile was smug, victorious. Stephanie works in corporate law. She understands the demands of building a career in ways that work better for my lifestyle. The implication hung between them like smoke. Nora was not educated enough, not sophisticated enough, not worthy enough for the life Tyler wanted. She had heard it all before during their final argument, but hearing it echoed now in front of his perfect fiancée made the humiliation fresh and raw. A stranger's hand. Actually, Nora heard herself say, I am here with my fiancé. The lie formed before she could stop it, born from pure panic and wounded pride. Tyler's expression shifted, surprise flickering across his features before his smile returned, tighter and more skeptical. Your fiancé? That is quite the coincidence. Yes, well. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. What was she doing? Life moves forward for everyone. How lovely. Stephanie's tone dripped with doubt. Where is your fiancé now? Nora's gaze swept frantically across the pool area, searching for any escape from this disaster she had created. That was when she saw him. He sat alone at a corner table beneath a swaying palm tree, focused on his laptop with intense concentration. Dark hair fell across his forehead, and even from a distance, Nora could see the sharp angles of his jaw, the expensive watch on his wrist, the way his gray shirt stretched across broad shoulders. He looked like he belonged in this world of wealth and privilege, like he owned the very air he breathed. Without thinking, driven by desperation and the need to salvage some fragment of her dignity, Nora pointed directly at him. There, she said. That is my fiancé. Tyler and Stephanie turned to look. The stranger, sensing eyes on him, glanced up from his laptop. His gaze locked with Nora's across the crowded pool deck, confusion clear in his striking gray eyes. Excuse me, Nora said quickly, already moving. I should go say hello. She walked toward the stranger on shaking legs, every step taking her deeper into a lie she had no plan to sustain. Her mind screamed at her to turn around, to admit the truth, to preserve what little dignity remained. But her feet kept moving, carrying her closer to the man who was about to become either her salvation or her complete humiliation. He watched her approach with curiosity and wariness, closing his laptop slowly. Up close, he was even more striking. Gray eyes studied her with sharp intelligence, his jaw could have been carved from stone, and there was something magnetic about the way he held himself, confident without arrogance. Nora reached his table and leaned down, her voice dropping to a desperate whisper. I know this is completely insane, but I just told my ex-boyfriend that you are my fiancé. He is watching us right now, so please just play along for 2 minutes. I will explain everything. I will owe you forever. Please. The stranger blinked once, twice. Then, impossibly, a slow smile spread across his face, transforming his serious features into something almost playful. Well, he said, his voice deep and smooth, this is certainly the most interesting thing that has happened to me all week. He stood, towering over her by at least 6 inches, and extended his hand. Dominic Sterling. Apparently, I am your fiancé now. The perfect illusion. Playing the role. Nora stared at Dominic Sterling's outstretched hand, her heart pounding so violently she thought he might hear it. This was madness. She had just pulled a complete stranger into her chaotic mess based on nothing but panic and bruised pride. He was going to laugh at her, walk away, maybe even call security. Instead, he stood there with that enigmatic smile, waiting. She took his hand. He pulled her gently closer, his other arm sliding around her waist with surprising naturalness. His cologne was subtle and sophisticated, something with hints of sandalwood and citrus that made her dizzy for reasons that had nothing to do with her racing pulse. Tyler is still watching, she whispered through a frozen smile. The one in the navy blazer with the woman clinging to his arm. Dominic's lips curved with amusement. I see them. The gentleman looks rather stunned. Should I kiss you to really sell this performance? What? No. Heat flooded Nora's face. Just maybe hold my hand or something normal people do. Hand holding it is. Dominic released her waist but kept her hand firmly in his, threading their fingers together with the ease of longtime lovers. His palm was warm and slightly calloused in unexpected places, suggesting he did more than sit behind a desk all day. Shall we sit? You look like you might faint. They settled at his table, and Dominic immediately shifted his chair closer to hers, creating an intimate space that screamed couple to anyone watching. He had clearly done this before, Nora thought wildly, though she could not imagine why a man like him would ever need to fake anything. So, Dominic said conversationally, his thumb tracing absent circles on the back of her hand in a gesture that felt far too real. I assume there is a story behind this particular brand of chaos? I am so sorry, Nora started, but he waved her off. Do not apologize yet. I am genuinely intrigued. Besides, I was drowning in financial projections and desperately needed a distraction. You have provided excellent entertainment value already. Before Nora could respond, Tyler's voice cut through the air like a blade. Nora, you did not introduce us to your fiancé. She turned to find Tyler and Stephanie standing beside their table, both wearing expressions of barely concealed suspicion. Her stomach dropped, but Dominic squeezed her hand reassuringly. Dominic Sterling, he said smoothly, standing and offering his hand to Tyler. His handshake was firm and brief, the kind that established quiet dominance without being overtly aggressive. You must be Tyler. Nora has mentioned you. Has she? Tyler's eyes narrowed. Funny, she never mentioned being engaged when we were together. That was only 6 months ago. 8 months, Nora corrected automatically. And why would I have mentioned something that had not happened yet? Dominic pulled her to her feet, wrapping his arm around her shoulders. We met shortly after she moved on from you. Sometimes the right person appears exactly when you need them most. The words were perfectly chosen, and Nora felt a rush of gratitude mixed with bewilderment. Who was this man, and why was he so skilled at improvisation? What do you do, Dominic? Stephanie asked, her calculating gaze assessing his expensive watch and tailored clothes. I run a venture capital firm, Dominic replied easily. Mostly technology investments and startup consulting. Rather boring stuff, really. Sounds successful, Tyler said, and Nora detected competitive edge in his tone. Where are you based? Primarily Boston, but I travel frequently for business. Nora and I are actually discussing where we want to settle after the wedding. Dominic looked down at her with such convincing affection that she almost believed it herself. She loves the ocean, so we are considering something coastal. Nora's mind reeled. He was creating an entire fictional life for them with details she had not provided. How did he know she loved the ocean? Establishing the arrangement. After Tyler and Stephanie finally departed, clearly unsatisfied but unable to challenge the story directly, Dominic released Nora and sank back into his chair. He ran a hand through his hair, and she caught a glimpse of so. Yes, Nora admitted, collapsing into her own chair. I know it was stupid. He showed up with his perfect new fiancée, and I could not stand the pity in his eyes. Like I was some tragic figure he had outgrown. He is a fool, Dominic said flatly. And she is exactly the type of woman men like him collect. Beautiful, accomplished, and utterly interchangeable. Nora looked at him sharply. That is a harsh assessment based on a 2-minute conversation. I am good at reading people. It is part of what I do. He leaned back, studying her with those penetrating gray eyes. So, Nora, what do we do now? Because I assume you did not plan beyond the initial lie. I have no idea, she confessed. I thought maybe I could avoid them for the rest of the week, but clearly that will not work. No, it will not. Dominic was quiet for a moment, his fingers drumming against the table in thought. Here is what I propose. I will be your fiancé for the week. We will make it convincing enough that your ex never questions it. In exchange, you help me with something. Nora's suspicion flared. Help you with what? There is a series of business dinners and networking events this week. I usually attend alone, which makes me a target for every aggressive pitch and awkward setup attempt. Having a fiancé would provide excellent cover. So you want to use me as a shield against business predators? Essentially, yes. We would both benefit. You get to show your ex that you have moved on spectacularly. I get to enjoy my evenings without constantly deflecting unwanted attention. Mutually beneficial deception. Nora should have said no. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was a terrible idea, that nothing good could come from building more lies on top of her initial panic. But she looked across the pool to where Tyler and Stephanie sat, their heads together in obvious gossip, probably dissecting every flaw they had found in her story. 1 week, she said finally. And we need ground rules. Dominic's smile was triumphant. Agreed. Let us grab lunch somewhere private and discuss the terms of our arrangement. Building the story. They ended up at a small beachside cafe on the resort's quieter side, away from the main pool and prying eyes. Over grilled shrimp and tropical fruit, they established the framework of their fake relationship. They had met at a charity art auction 10 months ago. Nora had been there with friends, and Dominic had been immediately drawn to her genuine laughter in a room full of forced sophistication. He had pursued her persistently until she agreed to coffee, and they had been together ever since. Why 10 months? Nora asked, making notes on a napkin. Long enough to be serious, short enough that people would not expect us to know every tiny detail about each other, Dominic explained. Relationships at 10 months are still in that exciting phase where you are discovering new things. They decided Dominic had proposed during a weekend getaway to the mountains, something simple and private rather than elaborate and showy. The ring was being resized, which explained why Nora was not wearing one. They were thinking about a small wedding, maybe somewhere by the ocean, sometime next spring. What about physical affection? Nora asked, her cheeks burning. Tyler will expect to see us act like a real couple. Hand-holding is fine. Casual touches, sitting close together, that sort of thing. Dominic's tone was professional, as if they were negotiating a business contract rather than fake intimacy. I will follow your lead. If you are uncomfortable, just squeeze my hand twice and I will back off immediately. And kissing? Only if absolutely necessary for believability. Brief, closed mouth, nothing that would make either of us uncomfortable. He paused. Unless you are comfortable with more, in which case we can adjust. Brief and closed mouth is fine, Nora said quickly, ignoring the flutter in her stomach at the thought of kissing him at all. They spent the next hour filling in details. Dominic learned that Nora had a younger brother in college, that she worked at an independent bookstore she loved and waitressed at night to make ends meet, that she had postponed her own education to help her family after her father passed away suddenly 3 years ago. That she read voraciously, loved the ocean more than anywhere else, and dreamed of eventually opening her own small bookshop in a coastal town. Nora learned that Dominic had built his venture capital firm from scratch, that his parents had passed away when he was young, raised by his grandmother who had taught him the value of hard work and integrity. That he valued privacy above almost everything else, that he rarely let people close, and that beneath his polished exterior was someone who understood loss and loneliness. The first test. Why are you really doing this? Nora asked as they finished their meal. You could have laughed at me and walked away. You still could. Dominic was quiet for a long moment, his gaze drifting toward the ocean visible beyond the cafe windows. When he spoke, his voice held unexpected vulnerability. Honestly? Because the look on your face when you saw your ex reminded me of myself 3 years ago. Someone I cared about made me feel small and insufficient, and it took a long time to rebuild from that. If I can help you avoid some of that pain, why would I not? The raw honesty in his answer surprised her. This man with his expensive clothes and obvious success had been hurt too, had felt inadequate. It made him suddenly, startlingly human. "Thank you," she said softly. "I mean it. This is beyond kind. Thank me at the end of the week if we successfully pull this off." Dominic stood and offered his hand. "Come on, fiancé. We have a welcome reception to prepare for, and we need to make sure everyone believes we are madly in love." As Nora took his hand and let him lead her back through the resort gardens, she tried to ignore the warning voice in her head. The one that whispered she was playing with fire, that fake relationships never stayed fake, that her heart was nowhere near ready for the complications a man like Dominic Sterling would bring. But for now, she pushed those thoughts aside. She had 1 week to make Tyler Morrison regret every dismissive comment, every subtle put-down, every moment he had made her feel less than worthy. And with Dominic beside her, playing the role of devoted fiancé with unsettling conviction, she was starting to believe it might actually work. What she did not know yet was that by the end of the week, the line between pretending and reality would blur beyond recognition, and she would have to decide which was more terrifying, returning to her ordinary life, or reaching for something extraordinary that might break her heart all over again. The welcome reception awaited, and with it, the real performance would begin. When pretend becomes real. The welcome reception. The resort's grand ballroom had been transformed into something from a dream. Crystal chandeliers cast warm light across tables draped in white linen, tropical flower arrangements perfumed the air, and floor-to-ceiling windows opened onto terraces overlooking the moonlit ocean. Guests mingled in evening wear, their conversations punctuated by the soft notes of a jazz quartet playing in the corner. Nora stood in front of the mirror in her suite, smoothing down the simple navy dress she had brought for nice dinners. It was the best thing she owned, purchased on sale 2 years ago, but standing here now, she felt woefully underdressed for the elegant affair downstairs. A knock on her door made her jump. When she opened it, Dominic stood in the hallway wearing a perfectly tailored charcoal suit that probably cost more than her monthly rent. His gray eyes swept over her, and something shifted in his expression. "You look beautiful," he said, and the sincerity in his voice made her breath catch. "You do not have to say that when no one else is listening," Nora replied, reaching for her small purse. "I know." Dominic offered his arm. "Ready to convince everyone we are hopelessly in love?" The ballroom buzzed with energy when they entered. Dominic's hand settled on the small of her back, warm and steady, as he guided her through the crowd. Several heads turned their way, and Nora noticed more than a few women watching Dominic with obvious interest. "You are popular," she murmured. "Hazard of attending these events alone," he replied quietly. "Watch, within 5 minutes, someone will approach with a business pitch or try to introduce me to their daughter." He was right. They had barely reached the bar when a silver-haired man in an expensive suit materialized beside them. "Dominic Sterling. I thought that was you." The man's handshake was overly enthusiastic. "Robert Chen, Chen Industries. We met at the Tech Summit in Seattle last year." "Of course, Robert. Good to see you." Dominic's smile was polite but measured. "This is my fiancée, Nora Bennett." "Fiancée?" Robert's eyebrows shot up. "I had no idea you were engaged." "Congratulations." "Thank you," Nora said, accepting his handshake. Dominic's arm slipped around her waist, pulling her closer against his side. "When is the wedding?" Robert asked. "Next spring," Dominic answered smoothly. "We are keeping it small and intimate. Just close family and friends." "Smart choice." "My daughter had 300 guests, and it was absolute chaos." Robert launched into a detailed story about his daughter's wedding, and Nora felt Dominic's thumb begin tracing small circles on her hip, a gesture that seemed unconscious but sent warmth spreading through her. Facing the enemy. They extracted themselves from Robert after 10 minutes and made their way toward the terrace for fresh air. The ocean breeze was cool against Nora's skin, carrying the scent of salt and night-blooming jasmine. "You were right about the business pitches," Nora said, leaning against the railing. "Does that happen everywhere you go?" "Pretty much. It comes with the territory." Dominic stood beside her, close enough that their shoulders touched. "But having you here makes it easier. People are less aggressive when they think you are unavailable." "Well, I am happy to be your human shield for the week." "You are more than that." The words came out quietly, and when Nora looked at him, his expression was unreadable in the moonlight. Before she could respond, a familiar voice shattered the moment. "There you are. We have been looking for you." Tyler and Stephanie emerged from the ballroom, both holding champagne glasses. Stephanie wore a stunning red dress that probably cost more than Nora's entire wardrobe, and Tyler looked smug in his designer suit. "Enjoying the reception?" Dominic asked, his arm returning to Nora's waist in a gesture that was becoming familiar. "It is lovely," Stephanie said, though her eyes were calculating as they moved between Nora and Dominic. "We were just talking to some of the other guests. Apparently, you are quite well known in certain circles, Dominic." "I try to keep a low profile," he replied evenly. "Must be difficult when you are so successful." Tyler's tone carried an edge. "I looked up your firm. Very impressive portfolio. You have made some major investments in the tech sector. I have been fortunate to work with talented entrepreneurs." "Funny though," Tyler continued, and Nora recognized that tone. He was building toward something. "I asked around, and no one seemed to know you were engaged. In fact, several people seemed quite surprised when I mentioned it." Nora's stomach tightened. Dominic, however, remained perfectly calm. "We have kept it private," he said. "Neither of us enjoys being in the spotlight. The engagement is recent, and we wanted to enjoy it ourselves before making any public announcements." "How romantic," Stephanie said, though doubt colored her words. "And how exactly did you two meet?" "The story keeps changing." "It does not change," Nora said, finding her voice. "We met at a charity event 10 months ago. Dominic was there for the art auction, and I was there with friends. We started talking, discovered we had similar interests, and things developed from there." "What kind of similar interests?" Tyler pressed. "You work in a bookstore, Nora. What could you possibly have in common with a venture capitalist?" The dismissiveness in his tone sparked something hot and fierce in Nora's chest. Before she could respond, Dominic spoke, his voice carrying an edge she had not heard before. "We both value authenticity over pretense," he said. "We both believe in working hard for what matters. We both understand that a person's worth is not measured by their bank account or social status." His gaze locked with Tyler's. "We both know the difference between genuine connection and shallow performance." The words hung in the air like a challenge. Tyler's jaw tightened, and Stephanie shifted uncomfortably. "The truth surfaces." "You do not know anything about me," Tyler said, his composure cracking slightly. "You met Nora a few days ago at most. This whole thing is obviously fake." "Tyler," Stephanie hissed, touching his arm, but he shook her off. "Come on, Nora. You expect us to believe you landed someone like him? You could barely afford dinner when we were together. Now suddenly you are engaged to a millionaire at a luxury resort?" The cruelty in his words hit like a slap. Nora felt tears burning behind her eyes, felt the familiar shame Tyler had always made her feel rising like bile in her throat. "That is enough." Dominic's voice was quiet but carried steel. He turned to face Tyler fully, and something dangerous flickered in his gray eyes. "You do not get to speak to her that way. Not now, not ever again." "Or what?" Tyler challenged. "You will defend your fake fiancé's honor?" She is not fake. The words came out before Nora fully processed what she was saying. He is not fake. What we have is real, more real than anything I ever had with you, Tyler. You spent 2 years making me feel small, making me believe I was not good enough for you, for anyone. But the truth is, you were the one who was not good enough. Not for me, not for any woman who wants to be valued for who she is rather than how she looks on someone's arm. Her voice shook, but she kept going, years of suppressed hurt pouring out. You made me feel worthless because I did not have the right education, the right job, the right clothes. You criticized everything about me while pretending it was for my own good. And I believed you. I actually believed there was something wrong with me. Tears streamed down her face now, but she did not care. But you know what? I would rather work 3 jobs and struggle to pay rent than spend 1 more minute pretending to be someone else just to please you. Tyler stared at her, his face flushed. Stephanie looked uncomfortable, clearly wanting to be anywhere else. Nora, Tyler started, but she cut him off. We are done here. Enjoy your engagement, your perfect life, your perfect match. I hope it makes you happy. She turned to Dominic. Can we go? Please. Unmasking hearts. Dominic took her hand without a word and led her away from the terrace, through the ballroom, and out into the garden paths beyond. Nora's legs shook, adrenaline and emotion making her unsteady. When they reached a secluded bench near a fountain, she collapsed onto it, burying her face in her hands. I am sorry, she gasped between sobs. I am so sorry. I ruined everything. I let him get to me, and I made a scene, and now everyone will know this was all fake. Hey! Dominic knelt in front of her, gently pulling her hands from her face. You have nothing to apologize for. What you said back there, that took real courage. I humiliated myself. No. You stood up for yourself. There is a big difference. He reached up, wiping tears from her cheeks with his thumbs. And for the record, nothing about this week has felt fake to me. Nora's breath caught. What? I agreed to this arrangement thinking it would be a simple transaction. A week of pretending, then we go our separate ways. Dominic's voice was low, intense. But somewhere between the pool deck and tonight, something changed. You changed it. Dominic, we barely know each other. I know you read 3 books a week and annotate the margins. I know you send half your paycheck home to help your brother stay in school. I know you light up when you talk about opening your own bookstore someday. I know you are kind to servers and strangers, that you notice small details others miss, that you have this incredible strength you do not even recognize in yourself. His hands framed her face, and his gray eyes searched hers. I know that in 3 days, you have made me feel more alive than I have felt in 3 years. So no, Nora, this does not feel fake to me anymore. Not even a little bit. I do not understand, she whispered. You could have anyone. Why would you want someone like me? Because you are real. Because you care about things that matter. Because when you smile, it reaches your eyes. Because you make me want to be honest instead of polished, present instead of distant. He leaned closer. Because I have spent the last 3 days pretending to be in love with you, and I just realized I was not pretending at all. Nora's heart hammered against her ribs. But what happens after this week? You go back to Boston, I go back to my tiny apartment and my 3 jobs. We live in completely different worlds. Then we figure it out. Together. Dominic's thumb traced her jawline. I am not asking you to have all the answers right now. I am just asking if you feel this too, this thing between us. Because if you do, then everything else is just logistics. I feel it, Nora admitted, her voice breaking. I have felt it since you took my hand at the pool. I have been trying so hard not to, trying to protect myself, but I feel it. Then let yourself feel it. Let yourself believe that you deserve this, that you deserve to be loved exactly as you are. When he kissed her, it was nothing like the brief, closed-mouth contact they had agreed upon. It was deep and real and full of all the emotion they had been carefully avoiding. Nora's hands tangled in his hair, and his arms wrapped around her, pulling her close as if he could shelter her from every hurt she had ever experienced. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Dominic rested his forehead against hers. "Stay with me," he murmured. "Not just for the rest of the week. Stay with me beyond that. Move to Boston, or I will move to wherever you are. We will figure out the details, but please, Nora, give this a real chance." "This is crazy," she said, but she was smiling through her tears. "We have known each other for 3 days. Sometimes 3 days is all you need to recognize something extraordinary." He kissed her again, softer this time. "What do you say? Want to turn our fake engagement into something real?" Nora thought about her small apartment, her exhausting routine, the life she had built from necessity rather than desire. She thought about Tyler's cutting words and the years she had spent believing she was not enough. Then she looked at Dominic, at the genuine affection in his eyes, at the future he was offering. Not a rescue or a fairy tale, but a partnership. A chance to build something together. "Yes," she whispered. "Yes, I want to try." 6 months later. The bookstore was small but perfect, nestled on a cobblestone street 2 blocks from the ocean in a charming coastal town halfway between Boston and Nora's hometown. Shelves lined every wall, filled with carefully curated books. A reading nook by the window invited customers to linger, and the scent of coffee from the small cafe counter mixed with the smell of paper and ink. Nora stood behind the register, processing an order, when the bell above the door chimed. She looked up to see Dominic entering with 2 cups of coffee and that smile that still made her heart skip. "Lunch delivery," he announced, setting the cups down. "How was your first official day as a business owner?" "Terrifying and wonderful," Nora admitted, coming around the counter to kiss him. "We have had 12 customers already, and Mrs. Peterson from down the street ordered 15 books for her book club. That is my brilliant fiancé." Dominic pulled her close. "Though I still think we should make this official sooner rather than later. Spring feels very far away. We agreed to do this right. No rushing." But Nora was grinning. "Besides, I need time to plan. Rachel is already going overboard with venue ideas. As long as I get to marry you eventually, I can wait." He kissed her forehead. "Oh, and I have news. That startup I told you about, the one developing educational software? They want me on their board. It would mean less travel, more time here with you. Dominic, you do not have to change your whole life for me. I am not changing it. I am building it, with you, into something better than I ever imagined." His gray eyes softened. "You showed me what really matters, Nora. Now let me show you every day how grateful I am that you took a chance on a fake fiancé who fell completely, genuinely in love with you." Through the bookstore window, Nora could see the ocean in the distance, could hear the gulls calling, could feel the salt breeze that had always meant home to her. She thought about that desperate moment at the resort pool, pointing at a stranger and spinning a lie that had somehow become the truest thing in her life. "No regrets?" Dominic asked, as if reading her thoughts. Nora looked up at the man who had started as a convenient fiction and become her greatest reality. At the life they were building together, brick by brick, choice by choice, filled with books and ocean views and honest love. "Not a single one," she said. And when he kissed her there in the bookstore she had always dreamed of owning, in the town they had chosen together, Nora knew that sometimes the best stories were the ones that started with a lie and ended with the absolute truth. The truth that she was worthy. The truth that she was enough. The truth that love, real love, did not ask you to be anything other than exactly who you were.